In mathematics, the delta symbol means change. You draw it as a triangle on the page, and it means that something is at play, something is changing than was there before. In COVID math, delta means the same thing. Change. As we are here on this first Sunday of September, wherever we are tuning in from the globe, we are perhaps not where we thought we'd be. Although things are reopening here in the Toronto area, we wonder, will shops stay open? Will schools? Will church? And in the face of Delta, in the face of change, the biggest threat of closure is us. Will we remain open? How do we live? What do we do, in the face of so much change? It's one thing to be nimble and flexible and humorous and adaptive for the 3 weeks that I thought the pandemic was going to last. When I advised my team at the beginning, just bring your stuff home from the office for 3 weeks. You never know how long this thing's going to go on. Coming up on 2 years later, it's difficult to know how to remain nimble and flexible and adaptive. And our tendency in the face of so many things changing around us can be to harden up and fixate even more. To focus all our energy on the very small things that we do have control over. Of all the fruits of the Spirit, it seems to me that patience and kindness are in shortest supply right now. And in our white-knuckled grip on the wheel of life, it can be hard to see a different way forward. Perhaps we've got our blinders on, foot on the accelerator. Someone take me anywhere but here. Enter Jesus. As he so often does, Jesus enters the situation and cocks his head to one side, seeing us and our circumstances from a different angle. He takes that delta sign, that triangle, and turns it on its side, sees a yield sign instead. An upside down triangle. A sign that when you approach it on the road tells us that we might have to stop if necessary to let another traveler on the approach proceed. To allow someone who's beside us, who we didn't see until we turned our head, to let them have the right of way. It may be that yielding is one of the most challenging qualities of learning to follow Jesus right now. For it means acknowledging we are in fact not in control. To acknowledge that there is a sign up ahead that is asking us to slow down and maybe even stop again for the sake of someone else on the road with us. It's an opportunity, if we can see that change sign sideways as a yield symbol, to allow someone else on the road, someone else into the road that we're trying to pilot solo and make it on our own. Maybe even God. Jesus is on a journey of his own when we meet him today. He's gone on this roundabout way through hostile territory when he's interrupted by the crowd. And they bring to him a man who cannot hear or speak, and they say, "Please, Jesus, just lay your hands on him." Now, presumably, Jesus could have done this drive-through style. Stayed on his course, slowed down just enough to take the guy's order, give him what he wants, roll up the window, and keep going. And he doesn't. He stops, gets out, and pulls over to the side of the road to meet this guy. For Jesus, as for God, our inability to hear and speak are not obstacles to the work of God. God is not daunted by that. Rather, our inability to hear and speak are opportunities for God to draw close to us, to touch us, and to bless us. Along the side of the road, Jesus takes this man's face in his hands and he marks him not with the sign of the cross, but with an upside-down triangle. Puts his fingers in the man's ears. He spits on his hand and puts it in his tongue. Makes a yield sign on the man's face, as if to say to him, my friend, there is someone else on the road with you. You are not alone. As we know so well from the crushing isolation of the pandemic, there are certain healings that can only happen through touch. This is one of them. Jesus looks up to heaven and he sighs, and that feels about right. For in the face of Delta, in the face of yet more change and the threat of closures, Jesus sighs a visible bodily prayer. For this man who cannot yet hear or speak, he can nonetheless see. Jesus is on the road with me. Some expressions are lost in translation, and so though his gospel is written in Greek, Mark leaves in here the expression that's in Jesus and this man's native Aramaic, the language of their hearts. Ephphatha, he says, be opened. In the face of Delta and ongoing change, the biggest threat of closure is us. Will we stay open? Let us not miss the words of Jesus to us as he paints a yield sign across our face. Be opened. This Labor Day weekend, there lies before us the opportunity to yield and maybe even to stop. To not labor. To not speed up. Rather, to recognize there are others on the road with us, namely God and our neighbor. May we yield to both, and in yielding, find our own healing and wholeness. Thanks be to God.